Success! Oh, hi. Glad you're here. I'm glad to be with you. Forgive me, it's been a rough month and the worst week of my life, but just keep trucking, right? Distraction. Maybe we'll talk about that movie later. So I'm just going to mention 2001 real quick. I might be a little, I always say that. I'm going to just blow through these and mention them really fast, and then I make like a way too long video, so we'll see what happens. No particular order. These are the movies released in 2001 that had a big impact on me for one reason or another. Vanilla Sky, great movie. One of my favorite Tom Cruise movies and my favorite Tom Cruise performances, and I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, but I think Vanilla Sky is absolutely brilliant. One of the greatest films I've ever seen, and very quotable. Plenty of life lessons. I'm always hollering tech support, or we got to get off this roof now. Vanilla Sky, good time. AI, artificial intelligence, brilliant and groundbreaking on many different ways. As far as I'm concerned, Stanley Kubrick's final film, even though he handed it off to Spielberg after he died. Before, whatever you want to, it's a Spielberg movie, so it's kind of a perfect blend, where half of it feels Kubrick and half of it feels Spielberg, but it's a great movie. It's Pinocchio with a robot. Good times. The Royal Tenenbaums was my introduction to Wes Anderson. I remember seeing it in theaters with my, at the time, girlfriend, best friend, future wife, whatever it is. And at the time, it was the most hilarious experience we had ever had in a movie theater, and we couldn't stop laughing. We absolutely loved it, and it's still one of my top 3 Wes Anderson films, I believe. Good times. One of the greatest comedies I've ever seen. Speaking of one of the greatest comedies I've ever seen, Made. Made is a film most people haven't heard of. It was one of Jon Favreau's original films back in the days of, I mean, not way back with like Swingers, but I think it was his second or third film or something. Anyway, it also has Vince Vaughn, and it's amazing. It's amazing. Small appearance by Sam Rockwell. It's hilarious. It's one of those fish out of waters. Peter Falk is amazing in that film, with one of my favorite lines of all time that I quote on a regular basis. Whenever people question why I'm treating them in a certain way, I say, because you lost my carpet cleaning van and I don't like you, you sucker. And then the whole scene with the there's no smoking at a station. Why, are you serving food? No, but there's no smoking at a ceramic station. Oh. And plus you need to purchase a ceramic if you want to sit here. Oh, well, can I get an ashtray? Can I color me that, a ceramic ashtray? She brings him the thing, and what colors would you like? I'm not sure. Surprise me. I don't know what I'm feeling today. And then the Pig Latin thing. Anyway, Made is a great movie about 2 guys, fish out of water type story, wanting to get into like mob type stuff, and then when they finally do, they're kind of in over their head. Great film. Vince Vaughn at his best. What the heck? Snatch? I think I'm mentioning Snatch. Great movie. I think that was my introduction to Guy Ritchie. I might have seen Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels first. I think both of them kind of came hand in hand, which was my introduction. But Snatch, great film. Obviously, Brad Pitt. Hello, quote that all the time. It's for his mom. Oh, dogs. Yeah, I like dogs. I like caravans more. Snatch, great film. It was my introduction to everyone in that movie. So Snatch, stuck with me. My favorite Guy Ritchie film. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, great comedy, fantastic comedy, very quotable, very memorable. One of my favorite movies featuring Jay and Silent Bob. That and Dogma, probably. Love it. Love Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Fantastic film. Expletive deleted. Planet of the Apes? Yes, Planet of the Apes. The Tim Burton Planet of the Apes that I'm a huge fan of. Oh, that's right. I'm a huge fan of every single Planet of the Apes film. I was obsessed with the original series, not TV show, but the original series of movies when I was a kid, because they would do marathons on Sci-Fi Channel. Loved every single one of them. Every single one of them. I love the overarching story the Planet of the Apes films tell. From the big surprise in the first one, to let's blow up the world in the second one, to let's time travel to the past, to then that leads us to how we got to where we were in the first one in the first place after we have those characters that were discussed in the first one finally ending in the last one. It's great. It's a perfect circle, those original movies. And then you got Tim Burton, which I think is a brilliant film. I love the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes, beginning to end, everything about it. I absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant. The ending is one of my favorite endings of all time. The fact that he did a different ending than the original, but just as shocking and surprising and exciting. What I wouldn't give for a sequel to Tim Burton's movie. Because the way it ends, which is still something even after the last trilogy, we have never seen. A world like ours, yes, we've seen apes ruling the world and talking and riding horses. But the end of Tim Burton's film is the only time we see our world just like it is, only apes. Where they're pointing guns, they're wearing police uniforms, they're driving cars. They have Lincoln memorials that are actually, what's his name? Mr. Orange. You know what I mean. Anyway, it's everything turned out the way it is today, only instead of humans, apes. That's what I want to see. I want to see a world where apes are riding around in cars and going to movies and going to McDonald's and wearing clothes, normal clothes. That would be cool, and that's the only little snippet I got of it, and I was really looking forward to where it would go after that, but everyone hated it, so we never saw it again. But I love that movie. Very underrated. I'm gonna mention 13 Ghosts just because I have a core memory of my girlfriend at the time. I don't know if we were dating yet, doesn't matter. Watching it, and I wanted to watch it because I'd never seen it. I don't think I've technically actually seen it in its entirety. I just remember wanting to watch it and being distracted by the fact that she was watching it in the other room while I was trying to study for my test when I got a job at On the Border, where I don't know if it's still like this, but back then when you got the job at On the Border, you then had to take a test, and you had to pass this test or you didn't get to be on the floor as a server. And this test was every single item on the menu and its ingredients. It was probably the most difficult test I'd ever taken in my entire life. I studied for it more than I had ever studied for any test in my entire life, and still failed, and then was told by one of the employees, yeah, that test is impossible to pass. What we do is, you take your study guide, you take the test that you failed home, I can't remember, I think it was like somehow sneak another copy of the test, fill it out at home with your study guide, and then when you get to do the test, you just, there you go, here's the one I filled out at home. So I cheated. That was one of my least favorite jobs ever. I liked making the tortillas. They squeaked. Anyway. Jurassic Park 3. Yeah, I said it. Jurassic Park 3. I like that movie, and I will never forget. I was staying with my brother at the time in Greeley? Wherever that place is way up north that smells like cow poop. So I was already a fish out of water, out of my element in this small town that was pretty much one main street big. And they had one movie theater, and I just happened to be staying there when Jurassic Park 3 came out, and I was very excited, so I went to the movie theater and saw Jurassic Park 3 by myself in Greeley, in a movie theater I never went to before and never been to since. It was a good time. I like that movie. Téa Leoni, come on. And what's his face? William H. Macy playing a guy named Paul. Paul and Amanda, hello, that's me and my ex-wife. So Paul and Amanda in Jurassic Park 3 were pretty much me and my, at the time, future wife. Now ex-wife, which they are in the film. But then they got back together, which we did. But then we didn't. But they didn't. But they did. It's very close to me, that movie. This says, and your mother too. But I'm pretty sure that's Y Mama Tambien. Is that how you, I think that's what it's called? Y Mama Tambien? It's the Spanish film? With Pedro Pascal and Cassian Andor. what's it? Diego Luna. Aha. The first time I ever seen them, who'd have thought that 20, 30 years later, all of a sudden they would be worldwide phenomenons? But back then, they were just these two little kids with an older woman having threesomes, which is literally what your friends would tell you about this movie. And so you'd run out and watch it. I think my brother had it on VHS or something. So I watched it, and yeah, there were sex scenes, and I was like, ooh. That's about it. K-Pax, I'm going to mention K-Pax because it was very impactful for me when I first saw it. Great movie, classic film. I need to rewatch it. Jeff Bridges and Kevin Spacey, who's an amazing actor. That's all I'm going to say about Kevin Spacey. I could care less about all the other stuff because there's too many darn movies that he's amazing in. I mean, there's no way I'm going to take Seven or American Beauty out of my viewing library just because of someone's personal... Nope. I just look at the art. I just look at the art. Somebody cut off their ear. That has nothing to do with how good this painting is. You get me. But K-Pax, great film about a man in a mental hospital who says he's an alien that's going to go back home. And that's the whole point. That's the whole premise of the movie is he crazy? Or is he really an alien? And he helps everybody there. And anyway, classic, good film. If you haven't seen K-Pax, look it up. Don't say a word. Don't say a word. Okay, what's next? I'm just kidding. That was a classic movie I remember seeing in theaters. I was very excited about it. Brittany Murphy. Rest in peace, of course. Yeah, because that has, like, there was the very apartment setting with Femke Janssen trapped in bed and somebody watching her. You had Kiefer Sutherland, I think. And then you had Michael Douglas. And then his family hostage. He had to go get the mental husband. It was the final thing. And then it was a little twists and turns. I'll never forget seeing that in theaters. It was quite a viewing experience. And it was a good movie. Sorry, I said some words. Looks like that's it. That's all I just really wanted to go over, except for the last one, of course. Now, this last one, if you look it up, says it came out in 2000. However, that was its initial limited premiere release. Its official US wide release wasn't until early 2001, which is why, depending on who you ask, but for me, I saw it in 2001 because that's when it was available to most of the public. I saw it with my father. One of the first movies I saw at one of our local downtown theaters, like one of the, the only theater in my city that's decades and decades and decades old. Well, okay, well, yeah. But I mean, like, one of the old classic theaters where there's two screens, there was a balcony, yada yada, great times. The only one that served alcohol until recently. Granted, I didn't at this point, but we saw this movie. This movie was my introduction to one of the greatest directors of all time, if you ask me, Christopher Nolan. And this movie changed my life. It's one of the first experiences I ever had that I can remember where I walked out of a movie theater and everything was different. The whole world changed. My perception of the world changed. I changed. The way I thought about things, looked at things, felt about things, it all changed because of the impact this movie had on me. Remember Sammy Jenkins. Memento. The film Memento takes the cake for the most impactful film that I saw in 2001. And to this day, I consider it one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. Masterfully crafted, going forward and backward at the same time. And I even have on the DVD, there's an Easter egg. If you do certain things very tricky way, it's kind of complicated. But if you are able to do it, you can watch the movie in chronological order. Totally different movie. Totally different movie. But a great movie. I can't think of more than a few movies that are this brilliant as far as the craft of filmmaking and the unique usage of something that's never been done before. And it's perfectly done, brilliantly crafted. Great movie on every level, whether it's the editing, obviously, the acting, the moral of the story, the ending, which is technically the beginning, because the beginning is technically The ending and the middle is technically the beginning. It's complicated, but it's a great movie. I have never seen anything like it since, but I will never forget the core visual memory I have of walking out of that theater, looking around at the world, and nothing was the same. Memento changed my life, obviously. I got this tattoo. I didn't put the Sammy Jenkins on there, but it represents the remember. That's why it's in this particular handwriting. My ex-wife actually did this. But it's to represent that your memories are the most important thing you will ever have in your life. My greatest fear is getting something like Alzheimer's, which is something that my parents may or may not be starting to get. And that's scary for me. Because if my worst nightmare would be to look at my son and not know who he is. If you don't have your memories, nothing means anything. If I don't know who that is, they're nothing to me. Your memories make you who you are. They're the most important thing you have. Cherish them. Hang on to them. That's why I'm making these videos. Because they're not going to be in here forever. So I need this. Because someday, I'm going to forget that I walked out of that theater. And it changed my life. But now I have this. Now it's out there. So if I forget, I can watch this and go, oh yeah, now I remember. That's about it. Memento. Classic. 2001 was a good year. It was supposed to be the year I graduated, but I didn't. I dropped out instead. Anyway, that's a story for another time. I think it's already on the other deal. So I'll see you next time. 2001. All right, back to my hellish life. Okie dokie.